Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Well, Trevor, I'd have to say that I'm glowing with excitement.
Excellent. Excellent. For audio listeners, Cameron brought up his Infinity Gauntlet that he bought at on our Disney trip earlier in the year, and I am wearing my AvengerCon shirt that I bought on my most recent trip to Disney. So shout outs to because of course we were talking about Miss Marvel today. We're doing our full season 1 wrap up as kind of our continuation from a month and a half ago when we talked about the first episode. And why did we pick it? Because it's an MCU show that has just wrapped up. It's become kind of the trend of what we do these days. And maybe we'll get an extra hit or two because of SEO.
Huzzah.
Huzzah. The history lesson of this show originally released between June 8th, 2022 and July 13th. The episodes had a runtime between 41 and 52 minutes. In the MCU timeline of things, we had Hawkeye come out at the end of last year, as did Spider-Man No Way Home. We had Moon Knight in March through May of this year. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness came out back at the beginning of May 6th. And here we've had Miss Marvel. And then just last week, we also had Thor Love and Thunder debut. If you want to hear some of our thoughts on Thor Love and Thunder, you can listen to this week's That Nerdy Site show, where Cam and I did a big old fun spoiler cast episode on that. Still to come this year, we have She-Hulk debuting August 17th and Black Panther Wakanda Forever coming at November 11th, 2022. Presumably, we're going to get probably the first trailer that's probably going to come out at San Diego Comic-Con, I think think that's the rumors I've been seeing these days, since they're actually doing a Marvel panel back at San Diego Comic-Con this year.
It's gonna be a hard sell
to
Wakanda
get
Forever.
People to go back.
I mean, not to go that, no, because as Anime Expo in LA proved, nerds are not afraid.
Yeah, people are
piling
going back
in. Yeah.
You're saying Wakanda Forever is going to be a hard sell without Chadwick Boseman?
Yeah, I just it's even just thinking about it, I don't know, and I'll give it up massive props up to everybody who's involved in the production. I don't know how they made that commitment, and I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna watch it because I need to know what they thought they could put on screen without Chadwick Boseman, and I'm also willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that this could be on its own an incredible movie, but man, it's a hard sell. Mm-hmm. It's a hard sell.
Well, back to Miss Marvel. Our roll call here going to be a little bit of a repeat of what we talked about a handful of weeks ago, but I do have a handful of other names to add because obviously we had the full season to go from this time around. Previously, we already talked about the directors Adil and Bilal. They directed basically the first and last episodes of the series, Generation Y and No Normal. Having previously worked on projects like Black, Bad Boys for Life, and they'll be working on the upcoming Batgirl film. We had Mira Menon directing the episodes Crushed and Destined, which were episodes 2 and 3. She is a TV director who's worked on a number of projects like Halt and Catch Fire, Fear the Walking Dead, Glow, Titans, The Punisher, The Walking Dead, and Outlander. Shout out to Outlander, which is my sister's favorite show, as I've recently learned. She's a diehard Outlander fan, so much so that she wants to go to Vegas just to play an Outlander slot machine, apparently, that exists. So
for people who don't know, Outlander is the show about a woman who is at random times thrown back into time to ancient Scotland, mm-hmm. where she ends up being romanced and married by her current day husband's ancestors' arch nemesis.
Yeah.
Um,
I've seen like
it is a wildly weird premise, and
it
I like
is
not even I can get into that. Like
based
that's just too much.
based on the book series. I back when I was with
Time
my
traveling cuckolding is just too weird.
Yeah, when I was with my my previous partner years ago, Kat, she really loved the books, and so like we would watch the show, and we started dating I think like halfway through the first season. So like I've seen the second half of the first season, and when she kind of described that premise to me, I got very confused on who she was married to in the like modern day because I'd only seen like the the in the past of that first season. And so when I went back and like started to watch like the first few episodes, I was like, oh, I had things very much confused. Oops. um
Yep. I will
yeah.
say like I now I will say I don't like the idea of like well it's difficult because it's like it's not like she knew she could go back and to the future, and so like she anyway
Yeah.
it's explainable and it's understandable. I've clearly done enough research on on the matter.
Hmm.
I've read a few chapters of the book, and like I've got the general premise down from hearing other people talk about it.
Yeah.
Like it's understandable. And I was joking about the time traveling cuckolding. That's not what happens.
Yeah.
But it is a wild premise that I'm just like I just can't. At the same time though, like if it was a show about like a guy where this happened to him, like I also would be pretty like not okay with it because
Hmm.
it's like I get why it happened, but you can't once you go back to the future and then you go back to the past again, you can't just be like, "Oh, I can't ever go back to the future." Like you can. It happened.
Yeah.
Like you you can choose one. You can't marry everybody. Like it's the new girl scene where it's like you can't have two wives, you can't have multiple wives.
Hmm.
Why not? I don't know. Anyway,
uh
to all the
anyway,
TikTok people who appreciate that meme,
there you go.
we're out there.
Sure. Also, we have directing episodes Seeing Red and Time and Again. So episodes 4 and 5. Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy, who is an Oscar-winning Pakistani producer and director of projects like Saving Face and A Girl in the River: The Price of Forgiveness, which won the Oscar for Best Documentary Short Subject. Uh, so, like, I had pulled those because all of those were like announced beforehand. So I've actually had those. I was sitting on those fun facts from the first time around, but we didn't need them in that first episode. We had this is actually like an interesting one because for I think a lot of the Marvel shows we've had so far, we had pretty much like one writer kind of for the full 6 episode arc, maybe a couple here and there, like a couple guest writers or something. This was the first one I can remember where like each episode had its own writer. I think Bisha K. Ali, who did Generation Y, I believe they were probably like the overarching like story runner showrunner for the series, but they only wrote on Generation Y, having previously worked on Four Weddings and a Funeral and Loki. And then we had Kate Gritman, who wrote episode 2, Crushed. This was her writing debut, but she's previously worked in the industry as an assistant to Benioff and Weiss during Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Freddie Cyborn wrote episode 3, Destined, who's a writer on series like Bounty Hunters, Killing Eve, and Ragdoll. Sabir Perzada wrote Seeing Red, episode 4, having also worked on episodes of Person of Interest, Roswell, New Mexico, and most recently Moon Knight. Fatima Asghar wrote Time and Again, having written on a number of assorted projects back to 2014. None of them really jumped out as like notable, and I think some of them were just like personal shorts and stuff. And then Will Dunn was the credited writer for No Normal, and this was his debut, his writing debut. He'd like also worked basically on other episodes of the show as like a staff writer kind of thing, but this was his story credit one. Starring as before Iman Vellani in her debut here as Kamala Khan. She will also be in the upcoming The Marvels. Matt Lintz as Bruno, having been in Pixels, The Alienist, and The Walking Dead. Zenobia Shroff as Muniba, previously also having played Kumail's mother in The Big Sick. Mohan Kapoor playing Yusuf, aka Kamala's father, having been in projects called Happy New Year, Hostages, and Crime Next Door. Sagar Sheikh playing Amir, having been in various assorted projects going back to 2012. Yasmin Fletcher as Nakia in assorted projects since 2019. Laurel Marsden as Zoe in a couple other projects going back also to 2019. Rish Shah is one of our new ones here as Kamran. He was in To All the Boys, Always and Forever. So the third of the All the Boys trilogy there on Netflix. Nimra Busha played Najma, having also been in various assorted projects since 2010. Samanit Ahmed playing Sana, aka Kamala's grandmother, having been in a number of projects going back to 2009. Aramis Knight playing Red Dagger. He was also in it. He had like he was one of the most like bit part things in a lot of things, as a child actor kind of thing, including The Dark Knight Rises and Endgame. Laith Nakli playing Sheikh Abdullah, having been also in projects like 24 Legacy, The Wall, The Long Road Home, and 12 Strong. Mewish Hayat.
Well,
yep.
Sorry, you said the kid playing the Red Dagger?
Yeah, the kid playing Red Dagger, yeah.
Yeah, no, he was Bean in Ender's Game.
Okay.
And,
I never saw Ender's
Game,
sorry.
Oh, and he was MK in the Badlands TV series.
Oh, okay.
Which had 2 really great seasons and then one tragically terrible that canceled the show.
Okay. I just saw he was like in Dark Knight Rises, he was like Kid with Apple, I think was his like credited thing. I was like, what is Dark Knight Rises? So I'll throw that on there as a thing I recognize. Anyway, Laith Nakli as Sheikh Abdullah, 24 Legacy, The Wall, Long Road Home, and 12 Strong. Mewish Hayat as Aisha, having been in various assorted projects going back to 2006. Fawad Khan as Hassan in assorted projects back to 2007. Anjala Bhimani playing Auntie Ruby. Shout out to her also being the voice of Symmetra in Overwatch and Rampart in Apex Legends, among a lot of other various credits. And as we touched on in that first episode, Ariane Moyed playing Agent Cleary, probably best known to audiences from Succession or having played the role previously in Spider-Man No Way Home, and Alicia Reiner as Agent Deaver, kind of our ultimate big bad here over at Damage Control for the season, over having previously been one of the jerk characters in Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, she's also like thinly veiled racism.
Oh yeah. Extremely thinly veiled racism. When the episode, we'll talk about it, but when like the finale like pretty much goes full into ACAB territory, I was like,
oh yeah,
okay, I approve, because like she is leading. Like they make a point of saying like non-lethal rounds, but like she is like insisting that a whole squadron of her people just straight up shoot kids multiple times in that
in front of a crowd.
Yep, in front of a crowd. No qualms about it. After having been told not to, after being told not to engage by her superiors.
After being told not just not to engage, but to stand down.
Yeah, and
evacuate the area. Like very much like the complete opposite of what she did. Like it's wild.
Yeah. Some new trivia. We talked about in the first episode some of the co-creators having been celebrated because their names were on the like Coles Academic High School placard. Since then, co-creators of Kamala Khan, Sana Amanat and G. Willow Wilson, were celebrated by the characters Sana, aka Kamala's grandmother, and Mr. Wilson, the guidance counselor, basically being like named after those creators. The other co-creator, Adrian Alfona, was celebrated in that in the placard there. And then this is one I didn't catch until looking up some like trivia on the finale today. And in the finale, G. Willow Wilson has a like physical cameo in the series, featured in the TikTok montage at the end, where she is the person at the real GWW who mentions she looks so familiar, as a nice little wink and a nod to the fact that she helped create Kamala Khan. Iman Vellani became a fan of Kamala Khan / Miss Marvel when she read the 19-issue run of Miss Marvel Mecha, and she mirrored Kamala's fangirl tendencies by dressing up as Miss Marvel for Halloween when she was 15, prior to getting cast as Kamala Khan. So that was a fun little picture that was making the rounds as she did like the talk show circuit. The sonic weapons used by Damage Control are seemingly a new model of the Stark sonic weapons that we've seen all the way back in The Incredible Hulk. As with Moon Knight episodes, each episode of Miss Marvel included a QR code that will direct users to free comics. In the wedding episode, Taisha's brother Gabe is seen hiding all of Amir's shoes, which is referenced later in that scene when he comes back. He comes in saying like, all right, you're only supposed to hide one shoe. If you like watch that scene earlier, he's coming down the stairs with like a bundle of shoes. And he also gets a fun little Easter egg later where in the dance sequence, he's wearing the Hulk outfit that Kamala's mom had made for her in the first episode. In the finale, there is a certificate in the Hero food truck that sets the series in 2025, which makes it one of the latest things in the MCU so far.
That's cool.
The Sweatshop Boys, a hip-hop group featuring Riz MC, aka Riz Ahmed, is name dropped in a chat between Kamala and Kamran, and the Sweatshop Boys music is heard over multiple episodes of the series, including during kind of some of the big climactic chase scene stuff in the school in the finale. Similarly, Kumail Nanjiani's Kingo quote-unquote family of Bollywood stars from Eternals also gets a name check with Kamala and Kamran enjoying Kingo's work, while Kamran's mother prefers Kingo Sr. Of course, also being the same character.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, that's some of the new trivia we pulled in. Obviously, you also have stuff like the lamppost scene that we see in the end, being an iconic image of Miss Marvel issue number 5 is the reference there, and I'm waiting until like it's actually spoken and confirmed by people, but obviously we get the X-Men 97 theme suggesting that Kamala is in the MCU version of the character is a mutant, not an Inhuman, but we'll see how that actually plays out,
because the Inhumans are just a remix of the mutants. That's all they are.
Of course, yeah.
So hells to the yes, let's go. I heard that beat. I heard the music like shift into that, and I freaked out.
Yeah, I was like,
I was on a couch with 3 small children who had no idea, and my sister, who did not remember because she does not obsess over these things like I do.
Mm-hmm.
But then my brother-in-law and I talked about it later, and I was like, and he's like, I didn't really care for. I was like, screw you, man. This scene was made for me, and like if it was made for me alone, I'm happy. Like, holy crap, yes. Let's get the mutants in here. Enough lollygagging. Let's make it happen, Captain. Let's go.
Yeah, I was watching the episode basically the night it went live. And when that hit, I thought of Tim from Kind of Funny, because obviously he rants and raves every time like the X-Men theme comes up and stuff. And sure enough, like I saw he had tweeted, because he was probably a couple of minutes ahead of me because I got a little bit of a late start on the episode. He tweeted something to the effect of like, I love musical cues way too much. And I was like, I know exactly what he is referencing. And it was, yeah, it is the X-Men. It is credited as the X-Men 97 theme, just like it was in Multiverse of Madness, which will be the upcoming series. Not technically not because the previous X-Men animated series ran from I think 92 to 96, I think. So this is effectively like a continuation or whatever.
That show cannot come out soon. I'm stoked.
Yeah. For me, like obviously they were setting something up in that sequence, and I was waiting for Bruno to say like, it's like you're Inhuman or something. And when he's like, it's a mutation, and I was like, oh, that's the direction they're going with this. Okay, Like, cool. We'll see if it like actually turns into anything, or if it was just like a fun little wink and a nod at the audience who's going to obsess over this until we find out otherwise. But yeah. So what did you think of the series overall here, Cam?
Trevor, I just can't help but feel like when it comes to this, like the before it started, the like teaser, like a lot of the teaser stuff, a lot of the things about getting it started, I think it's like incompletely fair to say that my love for this show was inevitable.
Nice.
Thank you.
You're just gonna keep pulling up, even though you're wearing the nano gauntlet, i.e., Iron Man's version of the Infinity.
Yeah, but I
Gauntlet,
can't
so,
snap my fingers in it, Trevor, so it doesn't really count.
Yeah, but
also, there's
it's,
no way this is like the Iron Man actual one because look how bulky it is.
I mean, yeah, of course. It's just the like you saying the inevitable line. It's like, well, technically that was a Thanos thing, not an Iron Man thing. But yes.
Yeah, I know.
I know. It's all an Endgame reference.
That I actually pulled it out almost completely for that bit. So I'm gonna.
Fair enough.
Originally was gonna put it away, and then I thought, oh, when he asked me about it, I'll say my love for this was inevitable.
Fair enough.
And so I put it back on. It is hard to wear. And
I love
still
it 3,000.
worn...
So yeah.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Also making me sad now because I'm remembering that. No, there's like a thing on the thumb part that I mentioned to you before. Like when I bought it, it's like I still have not like worn that down yet, so it was like continuously stabbing my thumb.
Yeah. Oops.
Anyway, it's the things I do for the bits I love, Trevor. Or even mildly just are entertaining to me. The lengths I will go. Anyway, but yeah, no, I absolutely loved it. This was a top to bottom incredible show. I can honestly say that, and this is surprising for me, one of my favorite episodes is episode 5.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think normally this, and I think I pinned it on why when I was driving to work this. I watched it last night with the last 2 episodes with my nieces and nephew. And like, that's always an experience in and of itself. Like the time I tried to watch Luca with them and all they did was scream and talk during it. And I didn't pick up half of what was happening in Luca. There's that. And then there's the time that I got with this, which was, my niece spoiled when the one gal touches the thing and turns into like rocks and then a skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
Because my niece when she was getting close to my niece went, Uncle Cam, watch what happens when she touches it. And I'm like, spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, kid, like, and I'm not gonna say her name because I don't want like this to be forever haunting her. Because this, of course, will go down in infamy as like an incredible podcast that everybody listens to.
Of course.
Years later.
We're going to suddenly blow up.
Just for this episode, This is the one where we're like, this is the one, guys. This episode 396 of That D Plus show. This is where they really, really launched.
I think it's like 133. I think is where we're
fair
at.
Enough.
133, 134, somewhere in there.
Listen, man, we have accomplished more podcasts in our like 3-year run than I did for almost 5 years of doing it with official episodes. I don't like, it's different. We put out an episode every week anyway. And like some of those are like half an hour. They don't really, but anyway.
Doing 2 to 3 podcasts a week definitely takes a toll.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, to my point, like I was like, listen, if you tell me that watch what happens when this thing's gonna happen, it's a spoiler because I already know something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
That being said, like it was a bit harsh, but at the same time, kids have to. She's old enough. She needs to. Anyway, but no, it was a fun time watching with the kids and having just like an absolute blast, like enjoying it. But I have to say, I really think that episode 5 is one of my favorites. And I didn't, because it's like, cool. I love half an hour into a show. I'm almost in tears because these 2 characters I literally met half an hour ago, I've deeply become invested in their lives. It's masterful storytelling done in the best ways possible. And it's brilliant and so good. But I think what really touches on it and why I wasn't bothered by this random story somehow tying into it was Kamala that saved her grandmother, etc. Like why that didn't bother me. Because it's like, why does this episode happen in the middle of a fight? And I think it has to do with because the show's not just about Kamala. It's not just about her. her family, it's about the culture itself.
Yeah.
It's about like Amir says it in episode 2 or 3. He mentions every family has a partition story.
Yeah.
And we have been told multiple times the partition was such a difficult time. And in the West, especially in America, we hear about the British absolving their rulership over India, and we think of, after the successful protests and everything, after years of effort of a united India pushing out the oppressive colonists, and we think, yeah, India, yeah, and then we don't think about the strife that was caused by essentially backdoor dealing a Muslim only state of Pakistan.
I mean, you say that, like, my experience is, like, my world history classes, none of my history classes ever made it past, like, World War II. Basically, like, we always got to World War II, the end of the, like, and that was the end of the semester or the end of the year or whatever. Like, occasionally, we might tap into, like, the Korean or the Vietnam Wars or something like that, but, like, it was basically, like, World War II and then other war events, and we never talked about, like, you know, British, like, in world history, we never, like, branched out and were looking at the partition. So, like, my one of my first real, like, exposures to, like, the story of partition actually came not too long ago from a Doctor Who episode in the Jodie Whittaker era, where they, like, it's very reminiscent of that episode, of them kind of just going back to that time and dealing with, like, a family being split up by this terrible event and tragedy. But yeah, it's much like, like, Watchmen, a few years ago, kind of really putting a spotlight on, like, the Tulsa
Mm-hmm.
massacre. Like, there are just a ton
Yeah.
of, like, world events that, for a number of reasons. I mean, and the show even calls it out. Like, we spent X number of weeks on Romans and Greece, and 6 minutes on Persia or whatever. History is written by the oppressors, as
Yep.
Nakia calls out in the
Mm-hmm.
show. Um, and so, yeah, it's very, it very much is like the culture of this show is easily, like, its standout element for me, and getting to experience and see those cultural aspects. I rewatched basically the full series today in the lead up to this, and, like, it put into context, like, I remember the first episode, like, we talked about, loving the, like, the fun little artistic flourishes and the, like, the Edgar Wright elements, the Scott Pilgrim-esque-ness of that first
Yeah.
episode, that largely leaves throughout the rest of the series
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
favor of the cultural touchstones and the story of this Pakistani community and culture. And then we get a little bit of it to come back here in the finale with, Kamala telling her plan and stuff like that. And there are little beats here and there of a very colorful kind of
Mm-hmm.
beat or something like that. But, like, it was almost this, like, weird, like, almost a bait and switch kind of thing. Now, it's not bait and switch, because, like, both things are great. But it was like this realization of, like, oh, that thing I loved, like, wasn't there throughout a lot of the rest of the series, but I never really found myself missing it, because I
Never.
was so enamored and enraptured by the story of Kamala's family and her community and the mosque and her classmates, and yeah, then we get into kind of the partition story and the going back in time and seeing Aisha and Hanan. And that's why even though they're really only in that one episode, Aisha gets a little bit more in like an intro in one of the other episodes, but it was like there's such a pivotal element of this season that I at least wanted to give them a shout out in our little kind of cast of characters section. Because like all told, they're probably in this show more than Zoe is, but like Zoe very much was like getting big credits and stuff like that. So yeah, it it was a fascinating thing, like rewatching everything, and very much like this is probably it's probably between this and WandaVision as for like my favorite of the MCU shows.
Yeah,
And
without a
like
doubt.
I'd need to rewatch WandaVision, but like this like is a standout start to finish. Like
Mhm.
the only issues I ever really have with this series are that like sometimes things happen at such a breakneck speed that's like, well, that was like jarring. Like, you know, the Jin being introduced and then like immediately going to we're gonna kill Kamala because she's not like them being introduced and being like, hey, we're gonna help you and
I will
here's how you're
say,
related to this, and then just like
yeah,
by the end of that episode, like she doesn't want to help us right now. Well, we need to kill her now. I was like,
for me,
that's jarring, but
yeah, for me, I look at that and I think the clandestine is without a doubt the weakest part of the show, and they are an incredibly weak part of the show. I do not want to like. I'm not gonna hold back when I touch on this. Um, they are a convenience in that it is a way to introduce what's going on with Kamala to kind of be like, there's no Inhumans here, so instead we're going to say it's Jin, it's connected to this, this, and this. That's how it's connected to kind of the Pakistani Indian like Muslim kind of cultural thing. And then it's like, well, we get to a point now where we can't just have it be fun and games. Let's go ahead and like now the clandestine are like, she's not going to help us. Now they were the exposition. Now they're the antagonists. And then it's like, oh no, this thing that happened with the bracelet has opened up a tear in the veil. What's the what resolution? Well, now they've gone from being the antagonist to now the resolution. And it's for me, it's like, man, it is a convenience. It is a convenience to have them be whatever they need them to be. Now, I don't care.
yeah. I like
I don't
at
care
that
because
point
honestly, good. Keep them in as little as possible. I don't
exactly, yeah.
care about and this is weird. I don't care about the conflict. I love the culture. I love the aspects of the adventure. I love the coming of age story. I didn't need, and here's the thing, I love that they didn't turn Kamran in episode 6 into the stereotypical Marvel altered version, like different colored suit,
I
or
mean,
different colored powers of like, did
they
they do that? Was it
they
opposite colors?
they
Yeah,
very
but
much do that, but yeah, it's not
he's
now we have to fight. It is like he's
exact
struggling with stuff and she's not fighting him, but she is like protecting other people from him as he lashes out and stuff like that. So yeah.
what I love what she does that's so different from what every other time. Oh, they have like the opposite half of the power that I have. Now we gotta fight. It's he's hurting, he's in pain, like he's in emotional trauma. He just found out after being abandoned by his mother that she died, and nobody's really being up in front and honest about it. And he's frustrated and he's been hunted for days. He's in excruciating pain from these powers and trying to hold them back. And yeah, now he's lashing out at people who who tried to blow him up with a missile.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Kamran has been, as far as like reasons for being an antagonist go, he has held out for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I love about it is she doesn't fight him like directly, but she stops him from becoming the antagonist. She takes actions to stop him from doing something that makes him the villain.
Yeah.
And it's always him, either it's just that little loose of like loss of self-control that would definitely kill somebody. She stops it. And when his power, when he's just trying to knock a dude away from him, with just like kicking his leg out to just get this dude away from him, his power explodes and knocks a car into the air and almost hits the crowd. But Kamala stops it each time. And then when he's having his big like freak out moment, and in any other story, it's like, this is when I have to be the hero and make the hard decision. No, she takes a moment to give him a haven, a safe place, and breaks down and tells him what happened. And like, you can't give up because your mom ended up choosing you over going home, over doing what she had planned. Like, she was willing to do anything for it until like she realized that it would kill you, and then she wasn't willing to do it anymore. Like, don't do this. And then he's like, what can I do? And she goes, don't worry about it. Get to the dock. She does things so well to because she's not fighting crime. She's de-escalating conflict.
Yeah.
She's doing what we want to see heroes do, which is if the bad guy, the villain, is a person who is suffering from a mental health crisis, I don't want him to be beaten to a pulp. I want him to be helped. We are past the point in age where it's okay to beat up the mentally ill just because they wear a colorful outfit. And when this kid is in trouble and in pain and needing help, and this escalation of conflict has exploded because of law enforcement.
Yeah. We talked a little bit before we started, like the fact that the episode, they pivot very late in the game from going full ACAB, but like obviously
with
like
the cops,
with
the
cops,
God.
Yes, with the cops
being the
standing
thin blue
there.
Line,
yeah,
bullshit,
yeah.
bullshit.
I was like, I could have done
nonsense.
I could have done without that cop out, but
I'm like, you can't. I get it, Disney. I get it. I get it, Marvel. You can't put cops out. It's just, oh man.
But yeah, the obviously like Agent Deaver, like once again storming into the mosque and once again,
although with a warrant this time,
huh?
She has a warrant this time.
Sure, I actually don't think she did, or like at least they don't highlight it. Okay, do they?
She like puts it into the cleric.
Okay.
Because when she walks away, he's holding like a piece of paper from her.
Oh, okay.
And when she's walking in, she's holding a piece of paper. So,
okay. But she still doesn't take her shoes off. She still doesn't like respect the space they're in. Yeah.
No. She has a warrant to search a sacred sanctuary, which is just really messed up and not okay.
Yeah.
And not showing any respect or deference to the fact that this is a holy place.
Yeah.
Like screw you. Yeah. Also, at the beginning of the episode, she flat out says, "This is what happens when the wrong people get superpowers."
Yeah.
And her second in command goes, "What?"
Yeah.
And like looks at her like, "What did you just say?" And she goes, "I mean kids."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, sure you did, Karen.
She fully Marjorie Taylor Greens it or whatever, and is like, and the audience knows the dog whistle I'm saying, but I've given myself an out, and I can say kids. I meant kids. I didn't mean brown people. I meant kids. It's like, no, screw you, Deaver.
Agent Bobert Green over there.
Yeah.
Gosh, it was like, first off, shout out to the actress for like nailing it.
Yeah.
But also hate that character.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like when she first popped up at the end of the thing, I was like, oh, like I remember her as Figueroa from Orange is the New Black. Admittedly, I didn't watch like the last couple seasons of that show, but like she's very much like a bad, like just piece of crap person in that show. I was like, she's gonna be really like easy to hate in this, and sure enough, she rose to that challenge.
Yeah, I think it was episode 2 or was it 3 when they first go to the mosque to.
Episode 2, yeah.
Episode 2, yeah. When they're interrogating Zoe, and she like basically she gets.
Oh, actually, I guess it was probably episode 3 because Nakia basically makes the decision to run episode 2, but I think I think it's the kid falling at the end of episode 2 that triggers why they go and check the mosque the next day.
Yeah, that's it. So in episode 3, when her superior's interviewing Zoe and like they basically break it, they get enough information to kind of narrow it down, and he says like, search every, this, and he pauses and looks at her and gives her like just like this sniping glare that I picked up on right away, and I was like, what is he like, why is he looking at her that way? And then he says mosque, and I went, oh, she's a racist.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is our cue that I am her superior, but like I do not want to center in on this because I know the kind of person she is, but I can't do anything about it because the system protects the oppressors.
I mean, like, also, admittedly, I don't know um uh uh the actor there, Ariane Moayed. I like he could also be of Muslim descent. I don't know, and I don't know if his character is supposed to be, but like the fact that he is calling it out and says, like, and be respectful, we already know the FBI's, like, we know the FBI's already monitoring them. Like, I like that. Yeah, it's very like
Mm-hmm.
it is not afraid to highlight, like, hey, like, if you've read a newspaper, you know Muslims are constantly targeted and constantly under surveillance when they shouldn't be because of this, because of the 20 plus year old, as soon as the towers fell, every Muslim became a bad guy in American media. um and the tragedy of that. And obviously that was basically any brown person was a problem before that as well in American media. So like that is another reason that, like, the this show is so great, because it's not shying away from,
Mm-hmm.
like that understanding. Like, when they come back here in the finale, and it is and everybody basically, like, has their ID immediately ready to go, and they say, like, this isn't our first rodeo, like, we've been around this before. It's like, that is, like, the thing I think of is, man, what a shame that, like,
Mm-hmm.
that is the state of our country, that, like, people, and oppressed people, just know that they're going to be oppressed and are prepared for it. And obviously, like, I also, as I continue to rewatch The Wire and stuff, it's just like, yep, this is, like,
Yep.
as a white guy, I
This
like,
is America.
it sucks constantly seeing this, and knowing that, like, it's way worse than what is, like, being, fictionalized here. But like, so the great thing is, like, that it's showing this community in such a positive light the entire rest of the time, and it is showing them as the good guys throughout. And
Mm-hmm.
they have that, Spider-Man, let's go defend the hero moment,
Mm-hmm.
when Damage Control tries to, surround Kamala there at the end, and they all, like, rush the barricade and basically, like, give her an out. Um, so yeah, it's like, and even other elements throughout the show, like, rewatching it, the scene that, like, Kamala's mom has about, like, yeah, it was hard when we came to America, and we didn't
Mm-hmm.
speak the language well, and your father was working but not making, much money, and we were out of sorts until we found the mosque, until we found a community, we found all of the aunties and uncles, as as we see throughout the series. And yeah, they gossip and whatnot, but they all love each other, they all look out for one
Mm-hmm.
another. um uh it
Oh,
was
shout
a
out to
very beautiful.
shout out to Auntie Ruby, who says whoever this superhero girl is, she's gonna have a hard time finding a husband.
Hmm. Yeah.
Shout out to that little nod to episode one. No, 100%. I think that this, like I said, this is a show that is about Kamala, but part of Kamala is her community,
Hmm.
and it's a massive part of who she is. And one of the things I love about it is that they don't shy away from welcoming and loving people who, and we find out, like, what a absolute bomb to drop in episode 6 about Bruno, um that he's an abandoned child.
Mm. Yeah.
And like it puts into perspective a lot of things about, like, why Bruno gets sent home with so much food,
Hmm.
and why he's being looked after, and why he's, like, we know why he's so loved and cared for by the community. It's because it's now obvious, when he was in need, this community took care of him. And so he is a part of it, and he's giving back in the ways that he can.
Yeah.
Also, massive shout out to one of the best jokes in the entire show, the haram and halal hats.
Yeah.
I lost it. Now, here's the problem with that.
Hmm.
I was on a couch with 3 small children who do not understand the concept of kosher, much less haram and halal. Like much less like not only is there like a list of good things, but there's also a long list of bad things. Because it's easy. Oh, that's kosher. That means it's good to eat. That means it's bad to eat. To explain a dual concept of what is essentially around the same kind of idea,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of watching a television show is just not feasible. So my sister brilliantly said, "Oh," and they're like, what do those words mean?" And my sister says, "Oh, it means something in a different language." And which also added to the hilariousness
Yeah.
for me because it's
Which,
just like, yes,
which it does. And I don't think I'd really known Hamar sorry, Hamar, halal
halal,
and
and
and haram. There it is.
yeah,
Now, I was like
halal.
haram.
Uh-huh. White guys
Un,
trying to pronounce Muslim words.
yeah. But after that finale, like I did the research and found out what the joke was there. And rewatching uh the the nickname that Amir gives Kamran of like, oh, that's right, you used to look at the haram things online. We called you haram.kamran. Like I was like, oh, that's now there's like already I just thought it was like a .com thing was the joke they were making, but like
No, no, it was
getting the
haram.
getting the haram.com run, I was like, oh, now I know the things he was looking at online.
Yeah, basically, he's like, "Oh yeah, you're our pervert cousin."
Yeah. Cool thing that I just saw you potentially canoodling with my sister or whatever. um, yeah. Just a lot of fun little things like that of like on a second viewing or a more informed viewing, like catching little, winks and nods and like hearing the story that gets told about, what happened in the partition and like
Mhm.
hearing it again and then having seen it now kind of thing was a fun element of a rewatch. But yeah, like so much of just the joy of this series was just like experiencing the culture through Kamala's eyes and the like and I'm making like the superhero antics like a very secondary story. And like like you mentioned like the clandestines are, a largely forgettable element, and it is like, yeah, they serve the purpose of giving fun little action sequences throughout a couple of the episodes, like the shout out to the kitchen fight, that's a fun one, as well as like the chase slash fight in
Pakistan.
Karachi. Yeah. That is like some cool beats and cool
Oh yeah, no, no,
stuff.
it's awesome. Like I like this. I just have to give a massive shout out. 4 and 5 are probably my favorite episodes.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much about just Kamala going to Pakistan and enjoying and like going around and being shown around by her cousins who are like, we don't want to do the touristy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, go do it yourself. And her like falling into and meeting with like the Red Dagger and everything, and just it's an absolute joy to see. Like it's like without even knowing it or making a big deal about it, she falls into her first like superhero, uh, like superhero team up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just done so incredibly well as far as like the chase scene and everything. Like I said, the clandestine as like a group as like with a purpose and a goal and how they're going to accomplish it are very threadbare and not very compelling, but they serve a purpose of being what the story needs them to be at the time that they are doing it. And the chasing is an incredible example of that. So
Yeah. Any other beats or standout elements of the series? I want to give a shout out to the like the wedding episode as a whole, but in particular like the wedding and
mhm.
the dance sequence that is very much like it is this idea of like let's celebrate this culture and let's just go full out with a Bollywood number. Like this, especially watching this at the time that RRR is like constantly like I've not watched
Mhm.
RRR, but like enough
I haven't
people
seen it
are
either.
tweeting about it and I've seen like clips and segments of it that I'm like, yeah, maybe that is one that I'm going to sit down and actually watch. Like I know Logan has watched it and really enjoyed it. He said it was very long, but also really enjoyed it. Um And
It's a Bollywood film.
it
That's
yeah,
standard.
but it like the so like seeing that in juxtaposition with this, it was like, oh yeah, they just fully like did that, and you know, it's not it's not the like most polished overproduced kind of like glamorous thing, because it is, these people did it as part of this wedding. So you have, you know, Taisha's parents in there, and they learned part of the dance, and kind of, and they showed up for it. This the again the brother shows up in the Hulk outfit for his little part of it, and obviously Kamala and Bruno and Nakia do their little bit, and just everybody gets their like little moment to shine,
Hmm.
as like another
Hmm.
element and celebration of the culture. Similarly, I love the beat. Like I don't know how much this is like a Pakistani thing, although there was that movie, I want to say it was like Blinded by the Light a couple years ago, that was very much like, you know, a Pakistani coming to America and their love of Bruce Springsteen, I think, in that one. But here,
Oh,
obviously, we get
that is it's British. He's Pakistani British,
yeah.
and yeah.
But in this we obviously get like little allusions to that, with the grandmother thinking that that was why the
Hmm.
mother went to America. She's like, no, it was Bon Jovi. And obviously we get the Brown Jovi cover band joke, and numerous references to like the Jersey love of Bon Jovi. So, you know, shout out to not only it being like a celebration of Pakistani culture, but also Jersey culture. um and in that, like, I also want to give a super nod to the like incredibly colorful intro and outro sequences, that, you know, were constantly like the outros in particular being a lot of like, you know, like graffiti art and stuff. And then when we go over to Karachi, seeing like that kind of lifted over and seeing it in that
Hmm.
setting as well. um but then also in the intros, just like the all of the bright, vibrant, colorful Miss Marvel things. And then in the episode 5, basically instead of getting Miss Marvel, we see what I presume is Miss Marvel, but in Urdu, or in Islam, or in some kind of forged
It would
script.
be Urdu if
Yeah.
they're doing it for Pakistan. It'd be Urdu. If they were doing it for general, like they might have done it in Arabic, but like I think it was probably just Urdu.
Yeah. But yeah, just like those little flavors and elements being like, again, just a celebration of this culture that does not get a spotlight very often, let alone a spotlight on the scale of an MCU. Like, uh, um, I highlighted that the mother was also the mother in The Big Sick, and prior to this, that's probably like the most Pakistani representation I would have seen in a thing of this size. As well as like that, again, that Doctor Who episode from a couple years ago. So getting this character getting the spotlight, and this character being a character I was introduced to through the Avengers game, where she also has great representation in there, and, you know, great little relationship with her family in that, for the brief bits of the game that like center around that. um yeah, it's just really cool getting to see her, and I love the thematic elements. I love, like, if I was going to attribute one line of dialogue to Miss Marvel, it would have been the like, "Good is not a thing you are, it's a thing you do" line. So I
Hmm.
love that she gets that from the Sheik. I love that she gets her outfit from her mom, and I love that she gets her name from her dad. And it is like
Yeah.
all of her communal elements kind of like helping inform her character, um, in just very cool ways.
Also, I don't know if it's true. Like that's how they decided on the name Kamala Khan for the comics. But also, if her dad just made that up so that she could call herself Miss Marvel, that would be sick too because that's just like a fun dad thing to do.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know if it's true. I don't know what it all comes together as, but I will say this: that moment with her dad is very cool and very special, um, because it's just like it's about like we especially when it's like we struggled to have a second child, and like you were this, you know, this miracle. You were this you were this marvelous thing being brought into our lives. And I was like, I like that. That's a great thing. Also, the moment she goes, "Are you trying to tell me that I have the same name? Like I have the same
Yeah, same
name
name as
as
Carol
Carol
frickin'
frickin'
Danvers.
Danvers?"
Yeah.
Massive shout! Like,
I
just
mean,
what an
like,
amazing teen thing to do. Like, you're telling me this heartfelt thing. You're telling me I'm like Carol Danvers, my
yeah.
hero. Like, oh my gosh.
Iman Vellani is such a wonderful casting in this as well. Like that's
Hmm.
like obviously that can't be understated enough. Like she is at the center of this story around her culture and her celebration. But like in she has such great moments, not only in like in obviously like her interactions with everybody around her, but in particular, shout out to her in the pair of scenes she gets, one in the first episode and one in the finale, of her just sitting in the mirror and looking at herself in the, you know, the Avenger Con Captain Marvel outfit and then her Miss Marvel outfit at the end. Um and the flurry of emotions that like she's going through as and I know Timur also shouted this out in the screencast of Kind of Funny, so you know, hat tip to him as well. But it's definitely something I remember thinking about a lot in the first one, and then when it kind of came back here in the finale, I was like, yeah, she's just really good because she's going through so many beats, and it is like such a multi-layered thing. There is it is that like I, I don't remember how long ago it was, but I remember like in something there was the idea of like, you know, try looking at yourself in the mirror for 10 seconds and not, you know, walking away angry or nitpicking or like
Hmm.
disgusted by some part of you or something like that. And and she's doing this and in part because like her counselor tells her to go, you know, look at yourself in the mirror or whatever. But like the like seeing that or doing that as a teenage girl, as a Pakistani girl in America, as a Jersey girl in, you know, the broader thing, in as a in her costume, and you know, with a body type and shape and all those things, and as an a first time actress taking on this, you know, like larger than life character and role, and and like the representation element of like, as Tamor kind of highlighted, like making sure we deserve and continue to earn spots at the table, is like there's just such a beautiful like multi-layered thing, and she does such a great job in both of those like sequences of like showing Kamala the character and Iman the, you know, kid and actor and you know, Pakistani child that like is getting this incredible opportunity to be a you know, a representation and such a positive representation of a culture and a thing larger than herself. Much like you know, we were talking obviously earlier about like Wakanda Forever, like Chadwick Boseman got to do that same thing with Black Panther, and obviously Shang-Chi, Simu Liu getting to do it with Shang-Chi, and every time like Marvel's branching out into these other stories and we get to see people really just like step up to the plate, and this was another case, and she's just, yeah, start to finish, like everybody in this is like phenomenal, but I think she as like the center point, and especially as like a she had no acting experience prior to this, really. She just answered kind of an open casting call. I think she talked about in one of her talk show appearances, like she sent in like a professional resume, not like an acting resume of like, here are the roles I've done. It was like, here's the jobs I've had, or here's, you know, here's my club experience, here's my volunteer experience. Um, and it's
I have to say
just
that's such a Kamala Khan thing to do.
right, yeah. But yeah, it's such a joy to get to see her, and I can't wait to see her in the Marvels next, as well as, you know, in the future of the MCU and whatever else she does beyond this, because I hope she has a long and illustrious career ahead of her. Any final thoughts, Cam, or should we go ahead and dive into our grading?
You know, I was gonna go back for one more bit, but I actually think I'll let that lie. I'll just be earnest and honest in saying that Um, there's so much about Miss Marvel that I think is incredibly special. I think we touched on so much of it, and I don't think there's anything more I have to say other than that we are incredibly lucky to be in a time where we get stories like this, um, where we get to see things that don't things that for years and for so many years creative, incredibly talented people were told people that look like you and me, Trevor, don't care about these kinds of stories. Whether it's a story about a young teenage girl, um, whether it's a story about a culture that's not WASP, not white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, um, that's not quote unquote American in this nauseating traditional sense, and we're living in a time where the opportunities to the opportunities to do a show like this and prove that all of that was it was false, because this story and the storytelling and what they've done with this has been an incredible experience. I got to enjoy it on my own. I got to enjoy it with my brother-in-law. I got to enjoy it with my nieces and my nephew. I got to enjoy it in so many different aspects of it. And none of it is about people like us.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to see and enjoy it, empathize and care about these characters. I think that we are incredibly lucky to be living in a time where the voices that have, I don't want to say, it's true, that have been kept quiet and kept in the back and kept like these ideas and stories being kept at the bottom of the script pile. Put the interesting ones on top, leave the boring ones at the bottom. That idea of it, and then this is a story, this is a script that should be on top of any pilot should have ever come across. And we're blessed and lucky in a time where we got the opportunity to see this show come together in a way that was well funded, well put together, incredibly casted and proven right. So that is my final thought. We are so lucky to get a story like this. And I cannot fathom why they would not continue to do so, because this has been an incredible experience.
Yeah. I like hearing you kind of discuss that and thinking about Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I am
Another
rewatching
one.
because I have that I bought that on Blu-ray recently, or other Disney things recently like Turning Red or Raya and the Last Dragon. Like, please keep showing me stories of experiences that I didn't have or wouldn't have had,
Or will never have.
or will never have. Like, yeah, I want to continue to experience stories that are other than my own, because I've seen plenty of my own. Um, and not that if you can tell a great story, I will gladly sit through a great story of white people doing white people things. But like, I've seen so many of those that like it just, I don't need to see more. I'm much more interested by the new of something else. We talked about in our Thor spoiler cast, like, we both love Thor Ragnarok so much more because it was something new and fresh within the MCU and within Thor as the character. And Thor Love and Thunder was a little bit like of a step back because it wasn't as new and fresh anymore. It was a lot of the same moments and same beats and same humor. And so
Which we
there
just
are
discussed,
diminishing.
it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but it was inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, you get diminishing returns when you are getting, the same thing over and over again. And so, yeah, I will continue to love getting exposed to, and like, I as somebody who, did theater for many years, like I love going out and like seeking out stories that I know aren't going to be stories directed at me. So I love it even more when it is like big budget, big picture things that are going to hit a massive audience of things that are not directly, geared towards like the generic white person kind of tales that a lot of us grew up with. So yeah, shout out to stories like this, and the continued pursuit of representation, because I agree, like the myth of studio executives saying these won't sell, these we can't make money off of this stuff is just patently false. If you can tell a good story and you can tell a story that resonates with people, it will hopefully find its footing. So let us hop into our report card where we grade from A+ to F. Cam, what do you want to give Miss Marvel season 1?
A+, without a doubt.
Yeah. A+ for me as well. I did not doubt that from our conversation, but it's just
after what you said, we've talked about it. It's probably a B for me. No.
Yeah. Easy A+. And again, this Loki and WandaVision are easily my top 3 of the series, and it would be like I would kind of need a refresh of WandaVision and Loki to know.
I was hotter on Hawkeye. I was hotter on Hawkeye than a lot of people were, but I
love Haley Steinfeld in Hawkeye, and I love Jeremy Renner. I was less amused by the story of the overall, because I was thinking about that too. I was like, and I loved I love moments of Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is probably near the bottom of my list overall in MCU stuff. And I loved Oscar Isaac in Moon Knight, but as a whole story or something like that, I think start to finish, this never really had any lulls for me. And
never.
WandaVision and Loki were kind of in that same boat. So
the episode that should have been a lull for me was just such the opposite. Mm-hmm. And that just shows it's incredible storytelling.
Yeah.
When the stars actually come out, and the Trail of Stars, and it is such a beautiful, poignant moment. And oh my gosh, I want to cry.
Mm-hmm. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. This list is largely the same as when we did it for episode 1, but at some point they were like, oh, actually, I guess we should probably make Captain Marvel one of the suggestions for this. So Captain Marvel is now the first thing that you get suggested when watching Miss Marvel, as well as a fan's guide to Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, Hawkeye, Eternals, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, What If, and Black Widow. Captain Marvel ended up knocking Loki off of the list from the last time we talked about the show. Extracurriculars, you watching anything else on Disney Plus these days, Cam?
Right now, no, I'm not. Although I was a bit my interest was peaked, not peaked, but I saw the thing for Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and I was like, but with it's like Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen, and I was like, intrigued. I enjoyed Spider-Verse. I could go for some more, Peter Parker, Miles Morales, and Gwen, Spider-Gwen. I could always go for more of that.
Yeah. Back when Spider-Man Miles Morales came out, I did an episode of that D Plus show on one of the Spider-Man shows that was here's the introduction to Miles Morales' character. It didn't have Spider-Gwen. It was a Miles specific episode, but it was it was a fun little thing to do, because really, my big exposure to him had come from Spider-Verse, and the Spider-Man games. That's cool. Yeah, if you hop in, definitely let me know what you think of those animated ones. I will say, when I came back from Disney, there were a couple of just things at Disney in particular, like some musical cues from World of Color or from just various like Phantasmic also has a sequence. And I was like, I haven't watched Tangled in a while. So I went and sat down and watched Tangled this last week. I had that playing while I was doing something else. And I just really enjoyed Tangled. Mandy Moore and Zach Levi are just a delight as those characters before Disney Animation re-blew up with Frozen. It's a nice little, it's just a nice little film. So shout out to Tangled. But yeah, that is going to do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about Miss Marvel Season 1. You follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I'll give a massive shout out to Friday Night Dying Light. New episode is coming out every Friday, Friday evening. Check out that show. It's cool. It's good. I play game. It's called Dying Light 2, and it's themed around Friday Night Lights. Thematically, anyway.
Yeah, there you go. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will give a shout out to this week's Let's Plays. We did Let's Play. My Tuesday Let's Play was in honor of it being one of this month's PlayStation Plus games. I sat down with the first hour-ish of Crash Bandicoot 4. And was reminded that I don't like Crash Bandicoot games. And so you can watch me just get like progressively more frustrated throughout the game. I basically play up through like the first boss of Crash 4, like the first boss level. And there's definitely like a point in there where I'm just like, I'm not even going to try and get all 100 crates anymore. I'm just going to start like mainlining these levels because I just don't care. So yeah, shout outs to that Let's Play. And then another one I hopped into as a longtime Final Fantasy fan. I played Final Fantasy Mystery Dungeon, or Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon Everybody, which is basically a remaster of, I believe, a PlayStation 1 game that came out
It is, yes.
A couple years ago for PS4 and I think Xbox and stuff like that. It's also one of the things you can find in like the classics catalog of, like, I'm a PlayStation Plus premium subscriber, so hopped into that. It was a fun little one. After I like finished recording that one, I kept playing it for a little while, and then I just hit a wall where I was like, well, I'm just dying and losing a whole bunch of stuff, and this just stopped being fun. So I stopped playing it, and I'm gonna find something new to play.
The PS1 era.
Yeah. But it was a fun little like diversion, and it was, like, cool little ideas and stuff like that. But yeah. So check those out check all that stuff, those as well as Cameron's Friday Night Dying Light series on youtube.com/thatnerdysite, every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday for Cam's Let's Plays. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, all that fun stuff. I would like to tease what we're going to be doing the next couple weeks, but I don't know what we're going to be doing the next couple weeks. I need to basically put the feelers out and get other people to make suggestions because so much of this is just like, hey, I'm going to do an episode on this if somebody wants to join me. So if anybody else wants to throw out some suggestions, that'll be great. But thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.